Welcome back, my friends. Skirt.
Hi everyone, just an ordinary dude here, and welcome to another edition of Discussions with the Dude. Today I'm joined by Josh Pulliam, also known as JPOmare. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing fine, just great.
Good, and today we are going to discuss a few things about the Loud House, specifically relating to one of our favourite characters, both of us, Lynn Jr. Now, I'm going to put up a spoiler warning right away, because
because this is from the recent summer camp story arc that came out earlier, or just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it's recently just come out. A lot of people, I think, have just seen it for the first time this weekend, just gone, as of the time of recording this. So, yeah, there's going to be some spoilers for stuff that happens in the summer camp arc episodes. So just so that you're aware, if you don't want to be spoiled, then leave this video now and come back later, obviously. Or if you have seen it, or if you just don't care, carry on listening. Great, more views for us. Yeah, so we're going to talk about something that I've addressed a number of times before. Now, with Lynn Jr., what do you think of when it comes to her character? You sort of think of her as, well, she's the sporty athlete of the family, but she's also like the tough one, the one with the action traits. You know, the show does try to make her out to be like a kind of a badass. Why not? She's even got superhuman strength in a lot of episodes. Like, she can lift Vanzilla. She can even lift the actual Loud House. She's disciplined.
Exactly.
She's disciplined in multiple martial arts. We've seen her doing wrestling and kickboxing and karate and all sorts of things in various episodes, as well as just brawling with her siblings. And many times she's portrayed as this unstoppable force of nature that nothing can defeat. But here's the problem with that. They only really do that when she's an antagonist. Like in... Yeah, you know what I mean?
Exactly. I mean, it's just like they never use her strength to any actual potential, like anything helpful. I mean, yeah, there's that one time when she saved Lincoln from falling off the roof and
that was
stealing thunder. But
yeah, I mean,
other than that, it's like they don't really do anything else.
Yeah, I mean, there are instances of Lynn being helpful or using her strength in noble and heroic ways, like the aforementioned stealing thunder episode where she does save Lincoln from falling off the roof. There's also the time, you know, she fought a crocodile for him, and she also beat up another alligator / crocodile in the episode in England. What was it called? A Night to Remember.
I think.
She's beaten a crocodile up for them a couple of times. You know, there are times like Lynn has used her strength to be helpful, like when she defends them from meatballs being flung at them in None of Your Business, or when she helps them, like she dangles them off a cliff for a while until a boat comes to rescue them in Camped. There are moments like that, but they're usually like downplayed moments. They're played for laughs. They're played for comedy, and that's the thing. Rarely, if ever, do they actually use Lynn's strength for noble deeds. It's usually either to make her an overpowered bully / antagonist, or for a quick, cheap gag. And sometimes that can work, sure, fair enough. I mean, as much as, you know, I think they should balance it out with having her be an antagonist and having her be more like heroic and badass in a positive way. I do like episodes like Snow Escape, and even Lynn Takes All to a lesser extent. I do like them.
Yeah.
Just the fact that it's not
No Escape. That's the one where she goes all berserk with the snowballs, right?
Snow Escape's the one where she chases them all with snowballs. Lynn Takes All is the one.
Yeah, because it's a packing day, and it's
And
I remember seeing that for the first time, and I'm like, geez, and I thought Luann was the only allowed to avoid on one day of the year.
Well, you forget that.
But yes,
Lisa
I do like
also
those
did the same
types of
thing as Lynn.
episodes because they are pretty funny.
Lisa Loud did the same thing as Lynn all the way back in season 1. Remember, snowboard.
Yep.
So it's not.
Don't forget about.
And we've also got Becky and Ricky doing it briefly in that Christmas episode of the Casa Grandes where they chase Bobby with snowballs with a big castle.
Yes.
So there are
That's right.
characters who do that. But yeah, the thing is, like, I wouldn't mind all of this if it wasn't for the fact that whenever there's a plot where Lynn could use her status as the tough one to, like, defend her brother or protect her family or do something noble and heroic and cool with her strength, with her toughness, with her formidability.
Exactly, that opportunity is completely missed.
Yeah, and how many times have they done that now? Like,
about a dozen or so.
Many of them. Like, for example, either when Lynn's strength could be used to resolve a plot, either she's written out the story, like, for example, in No Bus No Fuss, where Lincoln and his friends are dealing with a trio of bullies, and Lynn could have probably easily dealt with them, but of course she's nowhere to be seen. In fact, the episode writes her out right at the start, where it says, "Oh, I'm running to school now," just to get her out of the plot. Or she's nerfed to the point where she's, for some reason, not strong enough to deal with the threat at hand, like at the end of Lynn and Order. There's a little bobcat about a third of her size, and for some reason she's not able to subdue it. It overpowers her.
What the heck? This is the same girl who wrestled a crocodile.
Yeah,
You're telling me she can't take a bobcat?
But yeah, that's the thing. She lifted a house when she was being the antagonist, when she was being a jerk to Shiloh in the gloat. But when it comes time for her to protect someone, to save someone, no, she's useless. And it's like, that's just not a good way to write the character, is it? Like, let's be honest. Especially when you're going to write her as an antagonist, and even a bully at times, so many times in the show.
When I saw Lynn and Order, I'm like, Jesus, Bull Hoffner must have trained some bobcat if even Lynn can't take it. Jeez.
Well, I don't know. Like that's the other thing. Like, other characters seem to steal her thunder, but we'll get back to that in a minute. But either Lynn's written out of the story, or she's nerfed to the point where she can't overcome the threat. And or there's an episode that focuses on her where she could do something like this, but where she could, like, use the strength to save the day. But again, it just doesn't play out that way. And the summer camp arc actually features Lynn Jr. in it quite a lot. And what I noticed is that this summer camp arc, as good as it overall was, I did like most of the episodes from it, it demonstrates the biggest writing flaw with Lynn Jr. throughout the entire arc, because there are not one, there's not two, but there's 3 opportunities this arc had to give Lynn one of these great heroic badass moments, and it squandered the potential of every single one of them. And I'm going to talk about exactly why in a moment. So there are 3 episodes where the 3 episodes I'm going to focus on: Treasure Haunt, The Great Outdoors, which is her focal episode with Lisa, and an episode she's not actually really present in, Ticked Off, the special, you know? So I think you know where I'm going to go with this, right, JPOmare?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm pretty much,
So we'll start with Ticked Off. Now, remember what I said about No Bus No Fuss? The exact same thing is true for Ticked Off. Lincoln and his friends are once again dealing with a group
being bullied by these antagonists.
Yeah.
And Lynn's nowhere to be found.
Yeah, she's nowhere to be seen, even though she could probably easily overpower those little dossers. But of course, she's not in the plot because, God forbid, we actually have Lynn, like, successfully protect her brother. Like, the last time we actually had this was in Heavy Metal, where she was trying to, like, hunt down boys who she thought was picking on Lincoln. But of course, the boy she found was the wrong kid. She was misunderstanding the situation. It wasn't a legitimate moment. And then obviously with Chandler, she's never once helped Lincoln, like, deal with Chandler. Like, she knows about his behaviour. She even said, "Oh, that Chandler's a real jerk" at the end of the taunting hour, but she's never actually done anything about it. Like, the most we've ever seen is, remember Wheel and Deal from season 4, where Chandler, like, says this harsh comment to Lincoln and Lana, and at one point Lynn actually just says, "You better wait till the race starts, punk, you're going to eat their dust." And Chandler looks a bit scared by that. So it's like Chandler obviously is afraid of Lynn Jr., and for good reason. She's a lot stronger than him, surely. But he's not actually done anything to him, and it's like, wouldn't everyone love to see Lynn Jr. beat up Chandler? Something tells me they won't do that.
Yeah, man, I'd love to see that.
They wouldn't do that, though. They'll probably have Kara do that instead. like now that she's in the show, and she's sort of like the new Ronnie Ann or something, like early seasons Ronnie Ann sort of thing. But really, they've had tons of opportunities to do that with Lynn Jr., but they haven't. And again, in ticked off. Once again, sort of bullying / jerkish antagonists show up, and Lincoln and Clyde have to deal with them, and of course Lynn Jr. is nowhere to be found. Now, I understand Lincoln's the main character.
Ironically, it was Lola who ended up saving the day for Lincoln and them when she caught them on camera cheating.
Yeah. And it's like, couldn't Lola just beat them up as well if she gets angry enough? I mean, you know, she's like the Incredible Hulk.
Right.
The angrier she gets, the stronger she gets.
Right.
Yeah, I swear, Lola is basically like a Red Hulk. Well, actually, no, she's more like the Human Torch. I mean, I've even referenced that in my recent crossover story, which you might be aware of, Multiverse War, where I give an alternate version of her, the version that's in the Amazing Peanuts' stuff, Lauren, amplified fire powers, which makes sense because we saw at the end of A Star Is Scorn that Lola actually canonically does have fire powers of some kind. So that's actually a thing in the show, not just in fan fiction. But anyway, going back to the whole Lynn Jr. thing. So we got ticked off, which does the same thing as episodes like No Bus No Fuss. Just she's nowhere to be seen, of course. And then we have The Great Outdoors, Lynn's focal episode with Lisa, where she's trying to get her to go outside and do more active things in the camp. And there is a brief moment where she and the other girls do save Lisa from a tornado with like water balloons, but it's more of a comedic moment. It's like downplayed, you know what I mean? Like, it's not that big a moment. And then Lisa, of course, gets dragged away by a bird into the middle of the woods. And at this point, you could have like it shows like this little sequence of Lynn like climbing up a cliff to find Lisa and rescue her. And in the end, Lisa just sort of ended up getting back on her own. Well, I think, or did the bird take her back? I can't remember. Either way, it's like there could have been a great
something
moment.
like that.
Yeah,
I have to watch it again.
Yeah, there could be like a great moment where, I don't know, Lisa's being cornered by some fearsome predator, like some big animal, and Lynn has to save her.
Right.
To my story, Survival Instincts, where she saves Lincoln from a mountain wolf. But of course, there isn't a moment like that. There's no moments like that in this episode. Because God forbid again that they actually used Lynn's insane superhuman strength to the advantage and benefit of her siblings or friends, because that's just a big no-no in the show. Apparently the writers just won't do that for some reason. So once again, squandered potential, wasted opportunity. And then you have a very brief appearance in the episode Treasure Hunt, and of course the nerf effect applies. The same thing that I said about Lynn and Order. She doesn't even try to fight these pirates. Like, she basically sees Lincoln and Clyde getting picked on by, like, getting threatened by this pirate and his little octopus minion. And Lynn shows up and she's like, hey, I'm going to beat you up if you don't leave my brother alone. I'm really strong and everything. And he basically just brings up a pirate ship and she just immediately gets scared, backs off, is not really involved in the plot anymore, and has no involvement in the eventual climax where Lincoln and Clyde actually do manage to give the pirates a lot of trouble and ultimately beat them via outsmarting them in the end. But even like in the physical fight scene, it's like, if Lincoln and Clyde can give these guys and their ship that much trouble, surely Lincoln curb stomp them, you know what I mean, with like her massive strength level. But,
exactly.
But of course, no, she doesn't even try. She just gets scared and backs off. It's like, come on, Lynn's braver than that.
Right? It's like, come on, dude.
But of course, they love to nerf her. What, are Lincoln and Clyde stronger and tougher than Lynn now? Are they braver than Lynn Jr.? Is that the case?
You gotta be kidding.
Like, is that what they're going with? But it's like they don't want to use Lynn.
I can imagine Clyde being pretty intense because of that episode, All the Rage. Definitely not Lincoln.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about the same kid who can't even play sports in the episode The Loudest Yard.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because you're talking about All the Rage, where Clyde gets angry for a very specific reason, and he becomes insanely strong and aggressive at dodgeball, right? And that actually is a concept that I used first for Lincoln in one of my stories a couple of years before that, in The Quest for Glory, which you might have heard of, where I actually bring up this concept of hysterical strength, where when someone's in life-threatening danger or they see their family in life,
Yes, I've heard of that.
they become a lot stronger and more physically capable than they would normally be. And I applied this to Lincoln like long before All the Rage came out. So if anything, they stole that fucking idea. But
Right.
yeah, so I'm not like I imagine Lincoln and Clyde when the chips are really down are probably stronger than they're normally portrayed to be. If you know what I mean, like their normal level of ability. But it's like either way, Lincoln and Clyde, if they can give, and they weren't even particularly angry or anything. They were sort of like in their normal mood. If Lincoln and Clyde can give these two that much trouble, Lynn should be able to absolutely stomp them out, no difficulty. You know what I mean? Like, that's just basic logic, considering how strong Lynn is usually portrayed to be. Just not when the plot could actually benefit from her using it to save the day. And look, I understand the logic. The argument would be, well, wouldn't a lot of stories end too quickly, like if Lynn just used her strength to overpower everything? And I'm like, well maybe. Like, so you don't always have to have Lynn save the day in that big way. But here's the thing, we never really get that, do we? Or rarely ever. There's been so many opportunities to do this, and they're not doing it, you know what I mean? So it's like...
Yeah, it's like, come on, man.
In my stories, I had survival instincts where Lynn saves Lincoln from a mountain wolf. I had Lynn beat up a whole bunch of crocodiles to save Lincoln again in Wild Moose Chase. She plays a massive part in The Loud's Finest Hour against Virubus and his robot army, and she beats up Hamhand in one of the versions of that story. And that's another thing, like No Time to Spy is another perfect example. It was literally a spy movie, and only Myrtle really got any action. Like, the rest of the Louds, like, maybe took out one henchman apiece. Like, really? Come on.
Yeah, we see Lola throw her flowers at this one henchman chasing us and during the buggy chase. And it's like...
Yeah, and it's like the Casagrandes. Like, they got their moments in the climax of the Casagrandes movie, even though that wasn't really about...
Yeah, we see everyone fight all those monsters. You already heard me talk to death about Carlos Sr. suddenly getting all buff.
Yeah.
And it's like, where did that come from?
No, but it's like they wouldn't give the Louds the same, like, you know, treatment in either of their movies, really. Like, you had the perfect opportunity to have, like, Lynn take out 100 henchmen. You could have had Lola get super enraged and just maul her way through enemies. Like, you could have Luann, like, set up really elaborate pranks, like, more so than the one that we saw in the actual...
Oh, I know, and you know how I love Luann's pranks in the April Fool's episode.
You know, you could have had Laurie literally turn one of them into a human pretzel. You could have had Lenny use her strength and her brawling ability that we saw in Shot Girl, for example. She's a lot tougher than she seems. You could have had Lisa use her mechanics to do something. You could have had an absolutely epic final battle there, but we only just got Myrtle versus the main two, really. It's like, that's the one thing that stops me from giving No Time to Spy, as great as it otherwise was, a 10 out of 10. And here's the thing, I actually did review the movie not long after it came out on Instagram, and Whitney Wetter saw it and even liked it. So I think even she agrees with what I'm saying here. I think she knows that was the one ball in an otherwise really good film.
Yeah.
But, you know what I mean? Like, there's just been this summer camp arc. It just proves my point so perfectly, because you had at least 3 different episodes, 3 different opportunities to give Lynn that great moment that she honestly needs. Her character needs more moments like this, because so many people hate her. Out of all the Louds, she's easily the one with the most hate. And a lot of people love to point to all the moments where she's a bully and she's a jerk and she's picking on her brother and all that stuff. And
all that writing that misinterprets the character and why she's got the bad rep she has now.
Yeah, and you know what? The worst part is the fans. I mean, they like to criticize.
You can't really argue with them because they make solid points.
I mean, I do. Well, I can argue with it to a point, but I can't argue with everything they say, and that's the worst part. But the even worse part than that is the fact that the fans who love to criticize the show's writers, who, to be fair, don't always get it right, as we're discussing, the fans do an even worse job. You've seen most of the fan art.
Seriously, I've seen dozens of...
And they make Lynn out to be an absolute evil monster, worse than the show could ever even get away with. And I'm like, you guys are going to criticize her when you write her so much worse.
Oh, but then there's the other extreme where when you do see something positive about Lynn, it gets a little too positive, like in a creepy way.
Oh god, yeah.
You know what I'm saying, right?
Let's not even go there. Loudcest, fuck that shit. I mean,
I know, man.
that's
That's
the people
like
who
I
are
said.
fans of Lynn. Half the time they end up being Loudcest shippers, particularly Lincoln shippers. Like I used to kind of like
Oh my
Underrated
god,
Hero because
I can't stand those perverts.
yeah, like,
I
I
mean,
used to like Underrated Hero because you know he was quite a talented writer. What he wrote wasn't really my thing, and he was a talented artist
you know,
as well.
it's this kind of stuff that makes you,
And
kind of be ashamed to be a Loud fan when you realize it has the most
would be
cursed
fine.
fan base ever.
I wish I could.
But I don't.
Yeah, not.
I don't feel ashamed for it.
No,
I love this show, despite it having probably the most cursed fan base ever.
well, I don't know that pretty much every fandom's pretty fucked up. It's just ours gets more flack for it than anybody else. Like,
I know.
like even fandoms of shows that are consistently great, like Breaking Bad, they have plenty of toxic people. The Last of Us probably has a worse fandom than we have right now. I mean, there were
Or another example
like
is
proudly
Star versus the Forces of Evil. That's the one I just finished, by the way.
yeah.
And I thought it was, a lot of people like to harp on it, but especially for the ending. But I actually found the ending of that show pretty touching. Despite, don't get me wrong, it was kind of bizarre, but it did reunite the two. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, but like the Last of Us fandom that I was mentioning a minute ago, like I saw one person on the subreddit of that once, and they were proudly boasting that their fandom had cyberbullied what's her name, Bella Ramsey, because they thought she didn't play the lead character Ellie very well, and it's like you take pride in the fact that you're bullying a young female actor, really, and you're declaring it on a subreddit post. What you know what I mean? Like fuck me, I thought the Loud House fandom isn't actually any worse than most other fandoms. Like the Breaking Bad fandom,
I know.
a lot of toxic people. The Game of Thrones fandom, ever since the ending they had sucked, has had a lot of bad people come out of the fucking works. You know, I mean, and then you have other fandoms, like you said, Star versus the Forces of Evil. And you know what? For all the Loudcest, there's lots of other fandoms that do that. Ben 10, I used to watch that quite a lot, and I think a lot of fans ship Ben with Gwen. Gravity Falls, they ship different people. You know, it's not just the Loud House.
I know. Trust me, I know. I've seen some pretty bizarre stuff online.
Yeah, it's just ours gets more flat.
The internet's kind of a cesspool. It has been since day one.
Yeah,
so
the problem
can't pretend like it wasn't.
But what I was saying was, like, even when you have Lynn fans, half of them end up being Loudcest shippers. And Underrated Hero and that other guy, Tacky 8 Hero, the artist, the quite popular artist on DeviantArt, they're two talented people whose works I used to like until I realised they were just Loudcest shippers, really. And I was like, that just sucks. Right? It's like so few people like ourselves who are genuine Lynn fans, who aren't Loudcest shippers, who, you know, try to see the best in the character and want the best for the character. And so it sucks, like, when the show gives the haters more fuel to use to hate her and work against us. And it's like, I just wish the show would do more to show the positive aspects of a character like Lynn Jr., who clearly, I can't, other than myself, and I don't mean this in an egotistical way, I mean this in a very disappointed way, if I'm honest, because I wish it weren't the truth. Other than me, I can't think of anybody else who consistently writes her character correctly, whether it be in the show or in the fandom. I just can't think of anyone. Most people in the fandom, they either don't really use Lynn, like, there are some really talented people in this fandom, like whether they do fan art or writing or both or whatever, like two people who are really popular, Reisha GS and Ruhisu. Great, brilliant artists. They don't really focus on Lynn Jr. hardly, if ever. You know, she's not one of their main focal points of their content, right? And then you have other people I'm a fan of, like The Amazing Peanuts. And I like a lot of the stuff he does as well. But again, most of the stuff he's done with Lynn is basically having Lulu an older version of Lana, an OC of Ali Jr. that he uses, beat her up and overpower her and basically make her pay for all the bad stuff she's done in the show and make Lynn look inferior to this, I don't know, other OC. And then, obviously, eventually he did do something to kind of redeem that, but still, it's like... And then there's another user, a guy called Johnny, then with a load of numbers. I can't remember the exact username, but he comes across as like a pretty reasonable, level-headed guy when you talk to him. And he is a talented artist, but I don't like a lot of the stuff he posts. And I don't mean that, and I don't... I like the guy, sort of, but he does stuff like... He has this Wolverine version of Lynn Jr. who, like, brutally beats up the original because most of his art is based on, like, taking apart all the writing flaws of the show in very, like, sort of grim, extreme ways. And he also has, like, Rick and Morty show up and, like, lecture the louds about what jerks they are and everything. And it's like... A lot of this... Like, whenever... Like, people in the fandom use Lynn Jr. for their content, whether they're writing her or drawing her or whatever. They portray her in a really bad way most of the time, or they just don't use her. And that's like... one user who did use her quite a lot, who did her quite well, was the Fresh Knight, who isn't really active that much anymore. He was a very good artist who did try to portray Lynn Jr. in generally better ways, but again, he's not here anymore, and he mostly just did like artwork, and that's about it. He didn't really do a lot of writing. And then there's other users like That Engineer is very popular, and again, whenever I've spoken to him, he comes across as like a reasonable, level-headed guy. I have nothing personal against him, but I do think his stories are very overrated. They have a lot of writing issues, and one of them is the fact that they go so far to make the Laos look like the absolute worst monsters imaginable, and then the rest of the story is about trying to sort of redeem them but still be dark, and it takes them too far to the point where it's like, yeah, it takes it too far. Like, one of his main stories is basically take the premise of like Brawl in the Family, and instead of it ending the way it did, they all turn on Lincoln and brutally beat him until he's in the hospital. And it's like... Oh. That's the most popular fan fiction in the entire fandom. And I'm like, really? This? I'm like... When I did actually call out Underrated Hero and That Engineer, I mean, I probably didn't do it in the best way. But if I'm perfectly honest, all I've really said was I think their works are overrated. And to be honest... I think they are. You know, I do think that works like my own that aim to portray the Louds in a positive light and, you know, help show the better aspects of the show and help show what potential it has are far more valuable in the grand scheme of things. I think they should get more recognition. And I think that's a fair point to make, is it not?
Yes, I think you're right.
Yeah. But when I said it, okay, I didn't handle it with the most tact, I accept. But when I did say it, basically most of the fandom just turned on me and said I was a prick. And I ended up, for Damage Control, I ended up sort of having to do like this big, like 1 hour apology video. And look, I didn't handle it the best. I accept I was probably being quite rude and harsh with the way I was presenting my arguments and responding to people. But if I'm honest, do I really think that the points I made were wrong? No, not. I stand by the points I made. You know, I do think works are overrated, and this isn't like I have nothing against them. I have nothing against That Engineer personally. Underrated Hero, I can't really say I'm a fan of his because like he's a loud test guy. You know what I mean? But it's like, yeah, the fandom doesn't portray it any better than the show. In fact, they do it a lot worse. So those guys, the fans, calling out how the show writes so badly, yeah, they're the ones to talk because they fuck her character up even worse. And it's like, I wish more people could understand how to get Lynn Jr.'s character done right, like I am. I've worked hard to write a lot of really good Lynn Jr. content. Survival Instincts was the story I think the show always needed, with Lynn and Lincoln bonding on like a big mountain hike trip together. And, you know, them understanding each other and having some, like, tender moments, but without completely, like, softening her up to the point where she's, like, boring or not in character. And also, like, she does something heroic, like saves him from a ferocious animal that's attacking him. Like, that's all stuff that people would want to see. That's stuff that would benefit the characters and their dynamic and the show as a whole. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly.
But apparently more people would rather read Loud Cess Fix and No Such Luck and Brawl Hate Fix. To go figure.
I know, it's really...
Yeah, and it's like, going back to the summer camp arc, it's like those 3 episodes that I pointed out, they all absolutely, they prove my point so clearly, so poignantly, because you could have done something more with her character. I just wish, for once, the writers would understand that this character has a really bad reputation, and it would be beneficial. In fact, it's needed pretty much that she gets more, heroic moments that balance out the antagonistic ones, because otherwise, it's never going to change anything. I want to be a fan of Lynn Jr, and I am to a point, but I can't deny the fact that the show doesn't always do the best job with her. It's very... The word that always gets applied to Lynn Jr.'s character is inconsistency. She's inconsistent in how well she's written and portrayed in the show from episode to episode, from scene to scene. With other characters like Lola, over the years, even though she started out as unlikable because of the archetype she belongs to, in the end, she's had pretty much every episode actually has been great. All Lola episodes seem to be standouts. She's written so brilliantly by all the writers. They all perfectly understand her character so well, to the point where she doesn't really have that much hate anymore. Laurie, same thing. She started out as an absolute bitch. Remember in season 1, like in Save the Date, where she's threatening to beat him up if he doesn't go on a double date with Ronnie Ann and Bobby.
Right. This was back in the early season 1 days when Laurie was, as I like to refer to her as, the Queen effing Bee.
Yeah.
Because that's what my mom always referred to my Aunt Karen to back in the day.
Yeah, but it's like, Laurie was an awful person looking back, and I tell you what, Save the Date has aged really horribly. But my Aunt Karen's a nice person, though. She's really cool. Yeah, but Laurie wasn't in season 1 or some of season 2. It was around the end of season 2, going into season 3, where the show started to gradually improve her character. And since then, with maybe the occasional backslid, otherwise, she's been pretty much consistently handled well also, just like Lola. But with Lynn, and any other main character, she gets mishandled by the writing. And that's always the problem. Whenever there's a new episode that's coming out, I always have it, if it involves Lynn Jr, I've always got a fear in the back of my head, oh God, they're not going to misuse her again, are they? I can't deal with this anymore. And that's the problem. I want to think that. I want to be excited for an episode about my favourite character. Or, you know what I mean?
Right. Same here. But it's like...
I know what their track record is. I can't help but be worried about it. Like with The Glow, I was terrified of how that episode was going to turn out, because there were so many ways that could go wrong, and we know sometimes the show gets her wrong. Thankfully, that ended up actually being quite good, but sometimes it doesn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you.
Like, I will admit, in the recent seasons, generally she's been handled better than she ever.
I mean, no one ever likes to admit their favorite character is flawed, but they are.
Not like, I don't mind her being flawed. I don't want her to be a Mary Sue. I'm not even saying like that Lynn can never be overpowered. I'm not saying Lynn can never be defeated, but like, can it be less lame than like some random pirate that Lincoln could beat up, or a little bobcat to stop her? Like I don't know, like a big, exceptionally powerful supervillain or something. Like the ways I did it, again, in my stories, I think were done way better. But I just don't think the writers know what to do with the character. I just don't think they get the character. I don't think really anyone gets the character. And it's such a shame, because you've got the potential for one of the honest... Like, she could have been a fan favourite. I remember, like, I was there back in season 1, and Luna was always the #1 fan favourite, even from day one. But Lynn Jr, I think, was a close second in the early days of the Loud House, back in 2016. It wasn't until season 2 with Brawl and No Such Luck that everyone started to really... I think one of the boys planted the seed, because that was a pretty bad episode for me, that made Lynn out to be the same as like 10 bullying brothers, but it was really Brawl and No Such Luck that truly got the Lynn hate bandwagon started. But in the earliest days of the show, I remember people generally really loved her. And it honestly makes me sad because she's still my favourite character. I've been loyal all these years, and yet I still don't know what I'm going to get next.
I'll admit that
feels like
I didn't particularly care for Lynn at first, but she started to grow on me after a while.
Yeah. And it's like, I just wish like the show would know what to do with her. Like, if I'm perfectly honest, for me, Lynn's interest in sports is like the least interesting part of her character for me. What I like is her tough, energetic personality. You know, her role as the tough tomboy traits. You know, that's the part of Lynn I really like. And I want to see more of that utilised in the best way. And I don't mind her being an antagonist sometimes, but you've got to balance that out better than what the show actually has done. And I would love to see things like she has a rival that she competes with, like Babs Bestie, or that episode idea that I put forward about her fighting Becky, a sequel to Can't Win 'Em All, which, to be fair, was kind of hinted at. Look at Bella Big Book. You can't tell me that wasn't intentional.
Right? There is no way that that's a coincidence.
And she runs a wrestling promotion.
Yeah, and Becky's obsessed with wrestling, and it's like, come on, it's like they were tailor-making that for the fan service.
They were family. Bella and Becky are family. That is pretty much canon. You know, so
pretty much.
And Lynn and Bella Big Bucks fell out at the end of Can't Win 'Em All. Lynn just sort of left her high and dry, and Bella was all angry about it. So Bella's got reason.
You'll come crawling back.
Yeah, so Bella's got reason to come back for revenge against Lynn, and she says, you're going to fight a real wrestling match in my ring, and this is your opponent. She's my daughter or niece or whatever she is, Becky. And the two fight, and that's the build up. Maybe Becky and Ricky roam the school and like they threaten Lincoln or something, and that adds a personal element to it. And then you've got Lynn versus Becky in the wrestling ring. Becky gets the upper hand at first. Lynn eventually gets her. They have a great fight, and like Lynn eventually pins her, and they make good friends. All that bollocks, and then it'll be a great episode, a great moment. And
exactly.
Yeah, the added silver lining of like her defending Lincoln as well. If like Becky threatens him in some way, then that also makes Lynn look noble for sticking up for her brother. Because God forbid that actually happens in the show. Because when she tried it in Treasure Horn. No, we're just going to make Lynn back off like a little bitch. But yeah, or you could have her do what I've done, have her save one of her sisters from a fierce animal, like she could have done with Lisa in The Great Outdoors. You could have her beat up some random run-of-the-mill jerks and bullies. You could have her stop a supervillain. You could have had her beat up Ham Hand in No Time to Spy. Imagine if at the very end, that great big fight that Myrtle and Ham Hand had, if he came back right at the end of on the beach. Remember that scene on the beach where he gets back up and then somebody lands and crushes him? And it's like, instead of that, he runs at the Lals because he's angry he's just been beaten up, and Lynn just picks him up and dunks him on the floor in a second. That would be hilarious.
Oh, I know, that would be.
But no, Lynn doesn't get to have those kind of moments, I'm afraid. That's just not the way the writers are going. But the way the writers are going isn't that good, so there you go. And I don't mean to...
No, they're always, like you say, they're always focusing on mundane stories when they could do something spectacular.
It's weird because I think they're just burnt out. I think creatively they're just burnt out. A lot of them have been working on the show for a number of years. And I'm not trying to slag off, I'm not trying to slander them. I've even interacted with some of them before. They're all nice people, and they obviously are talented. They've written a lot of great episodes of the show. I think they are passionate, or were passionate, about it. I don't think it's a fact that they're not good enough. I think it's more just a fact that, well, first of all, they're burnt out. But also...
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the show's end is coming. I think
running out of steam at this point.
Yeah, I think season 10 might be it. I can't see it going much more past that. But it's like, aside from the writers being creatively burnt out and maybe a bit stagnant, Lynn Jr. especially is a character I just don't think they've ever really gotten an understanding of. And to be fair, nobody seems to really get her other than me. Which, again, is a shame. I wish more people would. But, you know, she's a character that is a bit hard to get right. I accept that. Because she is a tough, rambunctious, aggressive sort of character. And it's easy to make them look like a jerk. But obviously, if you make them too nice, they become boring. You need to have, you know, that fine line between aggressive but fun, but not being like too much of a like outright bullying prick. You know what I mean?
Right.
Most of the time, the show, I guess, kind of does, but not always. There is a lot of inconsistency, and there are a lot of missed opportunities to show the more positive aspects of Lynn Jr.'s status as the tough, aggressive member of the Loud family. And I just wish the show would take advantage of these chances a lot more than they do. But it just seems like they're not going to do that, you know what I mean?
I know. It's really sad.
Yeah. I mean, is there anything else you'd sort of like to bring up relating to this subject matter?
Well, not really. I mean, probably.
Yeah. I mean, referring back to Treasure Haunt, I mean, one thing I'm probably going to do, I might make like a commission, like, remember what I spoke about earlier? Like, if Link...
I'm in the middle of making some commissions here myself.
Yeah, if Link can lift the Loud House in the globe, it'd be funny if Treasure Haunt ended where she just picked up that whole pirate ship and just smashed it onto the pirate and octopus's heads and just was like, yeah, don't mess with my baby bro. There you go. That would have been amazing, wouldn't it? You know, I'm going to have to do something like that. That would be great. I just wish the show would do it. I just wish that stuff would be canon. It would be official. You know what I mean? But it's one of the many reasons why I wish there would be a reboot, a revival. Because as strong as the show has been over the years, I do believe there's still so much more it could achieve, so much more it hasn't done. And Lynn Jr. is definitely one of the characters that could do with the most improvement still. Because there's many great episodes that she has had, and she has had them. She's had many great moments as well. I do just wish it would be more consistent and that we get more moments like the ones I've described. You know?
Yeah.
But it just seems like the writers have their own ideas, and their own ideas aren't that particularly interesting. I don't know. Again, they're talented. It is what it is. I really do wish I could get my hands on this show one day, because I have listened to what its audience has said for a very long time. I've collated the data. I've really studied the show, what works, what doesn't work, what ideas would be great, and how to execute them. I've even written my own professional spec scripts for the show, you know, just like the professional writers do. So I know how to do it. So I would love one day to write for the Loud House, or more specifically, my own version of the Loud House, and for it to become a real show. Because I think there's so much potential with this series. Like, even though it's been moderately successful and it's had 9-10 seasons, it's still the tip of the iceberg. The Loud House could be a massively successful thing. I think it could at least match SpongeBob for popularity and Avatar for quality. And I don't exaggerate. I sincerely believe it could at least do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm with you, man.
Yeah. But it won't be this run, because I think it's had too much baggage, too much negative publicity, too many flaws, you know, too many setbacks. It's had a lot of bad luck since day one, and, you know, it is what it is. But I don't think it should be over. And I don't particularly want a spin-off. I don't want a spin-off based on flawed foundations, you know what I mean? I'd rather it had a reboot/revival, and that was really consistently brilliant, and then that had loads of spin-offs and expansions. that would be an absolute ideal situation. Unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal world, but we can work as close to that as possible.
Like I said, I've pretty much created my own version of the show through my deviations on DeviantArt.
Yeah.
I have to send you some copies of. Basically it's my version of the series called Tales of the Great Lakes, which basically just combines both elements from the Loud House and the Casa Grandes into one whole story.
Yeah.
And it's also got a ton of OCs in there too.
Fair enough. I mean,
like characters I've personally come up with that are connected with the pre-existing characters.
Yeah. And that's basically the same as what I've done with the B-Canon timeline. I've even far as to actually write and structure these episodes like these stories like they're real episodes, you know. And if you do read any of them, I think you might get that impression. In fact, I would recommend it. There are some in there that I think you would love, Josh, because of like your preferences and your favourites and everything. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I think I know what you're talking about. I'm like I said, I need to get around to doing that sometime, but I'm just so preoccupied with other stuff between my work, my family life, and of course my YouTube channel, and
yeah. But I suppose, yeah. I think we'll end,
the very deviations I make on between Facebook, DeviantArt, and other stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll end it there.
I have a lot on my plate, so to say.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about it another time. But yeah, I think we'll end it there. So yeah, I think we've made our point quite clear. Lynn Jr.
I think so too.
Lynn Jr. is a very good character, but she isn't always handled the best, and her role as the tough one is definitely not always handled the best. And the summer camp arc does prove that very well, unfortunately. And I do wish the show would do more moments of Lynn, like saving her brother or her sisters from threats or dealing with bullies or something like that. Unfortunately, at this point, I'm not really holding my breath, and that's a shame. But hopefully we'll get something sooner or later. Or if not, then hopefully we'll get a revival where that can happen. But either way, she is a great character, and when she's done right, she's really brilliant. And that's why it's a shame that consistency is an issue with her. But I still like Lynn Jr., and I can always say, look, there's B-Canon. But yeah, what do you guys think, all of you listening to this podcast? Do you think that the show should do more of with Lynn Jr., what I've suggested in this video, what Josh and I have talked about? Do you think that her character is always handled as well as it could be? Or do you think maybe there's been some missed opportunities there? Let me know what ideas you have for a character in the comment section below. And with that, I will see you guys next time.